Hi everyone, this is Dr. K. Shobha from Gfgc Hoskote, and today our topic is format of cost sheet. Already we have discussed some of the topics in few of the sessions. Today let us move on to the session number 6, that is format of the cost sheet. Now, before going to the cost sheet, first we should understand how we supposed to enter the items into the cost sheet. So for that, the simple format of the cost sheet have to be known. Under this, first, what are the items should be taken into the cost sheet? The first one is your direct materials, and the second one is the direct labor, and the third one is the direct expenses. See, all the three expenses, direct materials, direct labor, and the direct expenses put together, we call it as a prime cost. This is the prime cost. Okay. And next, after this, we are supposed to calculate the factory overheads. What exactly the meaning of factory overheads? The expenses which are going to incur at the time of factory. For example, we can take it as a rent of the building and some of the expenses which will be incurring at the time of manufacturing of the goods. All the expenses should be taken into the factory overheads. Now, I'm showing a simple cost sheet format. So after that, I will tell you what are the items that should be taken into the cost sheet. Okay. And now, after taking the factory overheads, we are going to get the factory cost. So after compiling all the expenses, we are going to get the factory cost. And after that, the next one is your office and the administration overheads. Say office and the administration overheads is the expenses which are going to be incurring at the time of office, and even we call it as an administration overheads. And after adding all the expenses, we are going to get the cost of production. This is what we call it as the cost of production. And next, after taking the cost of production, we're supposed to take the expenses called as selling and distribution expenses. If you add the selling and distribution to the cost of production, we are going to get the total cost. Total cost is the cost which is going to incur at the time of the production. That is what we call it as a total cost. And for that, if you add a profit, you are going to get the sales. See, this is what we call it as the sales here. Okay. And next, this is what we call it as a simple format of the cost sheet. Now, let us move on to the next slide, that is format of cost sheet. Now, already I told you that first you're supposed to take the direct materials. For the direct materials, what we supposed to add? First, you should add if there is any opening stock of raw materials is given the problem. Opening stock of raw materials. For that, we should add the purchases. If there is any purchases made during the year, that should be added to your opening stock of raw materials. And next, we are supposed to add the carriage inwards. Carriage inwards is nothing but at the time of the manufacturing of the goods, internally, what all the expenses are going to incur, that we call it like carriage inwards is nothing but carrying of the goods. Okay, so that is what you have to be added here. And next, you have to add octroi, custom duty, and other expenses on the purchase. See, at the time of manufacturing of the materials, this is what the expenses should be added to the raw materials. So everything is put together, we call it as an opening stock of raw materials. For that, we're supposed to add the purchases. If there is any expenses we are going to incur, all those expenses should be added to the opening stock of raw materials. And if there is any closing stock of raw materials is given in the problem, that should be deducted. less the closing stock of raw materials. Okay. And next we are going to get, if you for your direct materials, if you add the opening stock of raw materials and deduct the closing stock of raw materials, we are going to get the output. That is what we call it as a cost of direct materials consumed. And for the materials consumed, we should add the direct wages and the direct expenses. The put together, it's a combination of all the three expenses. We call it as a prime cost. See, this is what we call it as the prime cost. That is, A is your direct materials, B is your direct wages, and the C is your direct expenses. So this is what we call it as the prime cost. And next is um, for your prime cost, we're supposed to add the factory or the works overhead. For the factory overhead, we call it as another name called as the works overhead. Okay. Now, under the factory overheads, what all the expenses should be taken under this factory? Under that, indirect materials, indirect wages, leave wages, overtime, premium, fuel and power, coal, factory rent and taxes, insurance, factory lighting, supervision, works stationery, canteen and welfare expenses, repairs, haulage, works salaries, depreciation on plant and machinery, works expenses, gas and water, drawing office salaries, technical director's fees, laboratory expenses, works telephone expenses, internal transport expenses. So these are all the expenses at the time of the factory. These are all the expenses are going to incur. For example, if you are using a factory, under that you're supposed to pay the lighting, rent you should pay for any work done by any of the wage. Is it? Even that also you should be paid under the factory. That is what we call it as in supervision. For a supervision of your machineries, you have to pay the salary for them. Even that also should be taken under the factory overheads. Now, after taking all these expenses, from that we supposed to deduct the sale of scrap. Scrap means any wastage. If it is found in the factory, that should be deducted. And after that, you're supposed to add the opening stock of work in progress. Why we call opening stock of work in progress ಅಂದರೆ ನಾವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಕೆಲಸವನ್ನ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಅನ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ರಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಇನ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕರೀತೇವೆ. ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸ್. ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರಿಂಗ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಅಂತಹದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ವರ್ಕ್ ಇನ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಕರೀತೇವೆ. So that is what we call it as an opening stock of work in progress. If it is given in the problem, that should be added. And for that, you have to be deducted less closing stock of work in progress. If there is any closing stock of work in progress is given in the problem, that should be deducted. So then you are going to get works of cost or factory cost. As in the beginning, I told you that you are going to get works of cost, or even the name we call it as a works of cost ಅಥವಾ factory cost ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಕರೀತೇವೆ. Okay, and now let us move on to the next slide. That is, after getting the factory cost or the works cost, for that we should add office and administration overheads. Office ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು, administration ನಾವು ಆಫೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತೇವೆ. Is it right? So under the office, what all the expenses you are going to incur, all those expenses should be taken to your office and the administration overheads ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಕರೀತೇವೆ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್, ಯು ಟೇಕ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಆಫೀಸ್ ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿ. ಆಫೀಸಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವವರಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಸ್ಯಾಲರಿಯನ್ನ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು. ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಹೆಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವೇನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ಆಫೀಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ ಅದಕ್ಕಂತಾನೆ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಹೆಡ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಪ್ರೊವೈಡ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ದಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆನ್ಸಸ್ should be taken into the office only. And next is office rental rates. office stationery and printing. You can identify here what all the expenses you are going to incur in the office. Those expenses we are giving directly to the office and the administration overheads here. Okay. And sundry office expenses, depreciation and repairs of office equipment, depreciation of office furniture. See, earlier slide I have shown you that factory and the depreciation of factory. That is, the name itself indicates in the factory you have a depreciation. So you have to be taken to the office. Okay, you have to be taken into the factory there. But here depreciation of office furniture ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಆಫೀಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ಇಂಡಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. So you have to be taken into the office only. Subscription to trade journals. Okay, office lighting, establishment charges, directors traveling expenses, postage, legal charges and the audit fees. All these expenses you are going to incur in the office or in the administration overheads. Okay, and after taking all these, when you add all these expenses, you are going to get the cost of production. For your factory cost, you should add office expenses. You are going to get the cost of production. Okay, and next, for your cost of production, you should add opening stock of finished goods, and if there is any closing stock of finished goods, you should be deducted. If there is any opening stock of finished goods, add that to your cost of production. If there is any closing stock of finished goods is given in the problem, that should be deducted from your cost of production. So then you are going to get the cost of goods sold. Okay, and next, let us move on to the, for your cost of goods sold. Next, you are supposed to be added selling and distribution overheads. What are the expenses should be taken under the selling and distribution overheads? The name itself indicates a selling and distribution. Okay, after your finished goods, ಇವಾಗ ನಾವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಮ್ಯಾನುಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಚರ್ ಅನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದ ನಂತರ ನಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ರೆಡಿ ಫಾರ್ ಸೇಲ್, ಇಸ್ ಇಟ್ ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಇಫ್ ಯುವರ್ ಪ್ರಾಡಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ರೆಡಿ ಅಂದಾಗ ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ? ಓಕೆ, so for that, what all the expenses you are going to incur here? That is what advertising, showroom expenses, bad debts, salesman salary expenses, packaging expenses, carriage outwards, commission, counting house salaries, cost of catalogs, expenses of delivery vans, collection charges, traveling expenses, cost of tenders, warehouse expenses, cost of mailing literatures, sales manager's salary, sales director's fees, sales office expenses, depreciation and repairs of delivery vans, expenses of sales branches. So these are all the expenses should be taken under the selling and distribution overheads. So after the cost of goods sold, you should add these expenses. And later we are going to get cost of sales or the total cost. We call it as, for that we should add the profit. And then ultimately we are going to get the sales here. Okay. And next, move on to the next slide. What are the items that should not be included into the cost? When you are preparing the cost sheet, some of the items should be totally excluded, which are the cash discount, interest paid, preliminary expenses written off, goodwill, written off, provision for taxation, provision for bad debts, and transfer to reserve, donations, income tax paid, dividend paid, profit on loss on sale of fixed assets, and damages payable at law. These are all the expenses should not be included when you are preparing the cost sheet. Okay. And next, let us move on to the next slide. Today, what all the topics we have been discussed, that is the format of cost sheet, how to calculate the prime cost, and after the prime cost, how to calculate the factored cost, after the factored cost, how to calculate the cost of production, and after the cost of production, how to calculate the total cost. So with this, we have calculated, with this, we came to know what are the how to prepare the cost sheet. Thank you. And with this,